Growing up in the drug trade in the mountains of Northern California, I didn't see a whole lot of options for my life. I struggled a lot throughout my life with self-worth and the different labels that people put on me, homeless, Marine, and I just didn't really understand that those were other people's ideas of who I was, not my own. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. So with us today is Paul. Paul is a men's mental health coach, but really, he's so much more. He's really the sage at the edge of the woods. And he's been helping men just like you be able to take control of that narrative in their mind, be able to change the trajectory of their life by changing the voices that they allow to speak into them, by changing that internal narrative. So welcome with me today, Paul. And Paul, you're going to tell us all about these ideas that other people put on us that are not actually our own.
That's right, man. I call them society's toxic spells. And they are the things that shape our lives in so many ways, and we don't even realize that they're there.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this. When did you first recognize this? Take me to that moment.
I mean, I wouldn't have put that label on it, but for sure for me, it was something that started to show up early on in my life when I kept trying to accomplish the things that society, that I thought would make me worthwhile in the eyes of the people that were in my life and society and all these things. And I kept falling short, or I kept self-sabotaging, or I kept finding myself to be inadequate in some way, shape, or form. And it was the thing that I struggled with from a mental health and wellness perspective, was finding my place in the world, finding what would make me worthwhile.
All right, Paul. So other people may be listening to this and think like, this doesn't really apply to me. I don't really have that. But the reality is we all deal with that. We may just not recognize it.
That's right. I mean, if you're a man today, if you're a young boy today growing up, your life is already being shaped and influenced in terms of what is it going to look like for you to be successful? What are the things that you're going to need to accomplish in order to be a good husband, a good father, a good member of the community? All of those things are being shaped and influenced by something, by someone, by some group, right? And it's so soft and so subtle that we don't even realize for the most part that it's happening. But it does happen to all of us. And we very rarely take the time, we're not trained to take the time to have a pause and wonder, who am I doing any of this for anyways? And what does it actually mean? I believe that one of the first things that we should be thinking about when we're entering into the real, let's call it the mature time of our lives, is whose voice am I actually hearing in my head? Whose voice is actually shaping the decisions that I make? And it's something that is so simple to do, and it feels a little woo-woo for a lot of people. But when we get right down to it, most of the time we get to this root and it's like, yeah, not mine, right? The voice might start off by sounding like mine, but when I get down to it, it's my father's, it's the priest's, it's the community, it's the teacher, it's somebody else's voice.
You know, it's so true, Paul, that voice. And I have a good friend, very successful guy, one of the best business coaches I've ever met. And he says that we all have that little voice inside of us. And he calls it the little 4-letter word that prevents us from becoming who we really are. And so what other people, where'd you come up with this idea? What other people have experienced this or lend credence to this idea?
Well, I start always with myself and what is my own experience, right? So as I continued to come on to these moments of self-sabotage and to failure and to inadequacy and all of these things, I started to actually, and I came to a crisis point. So let me talk about the crisis point. I lost my job in 2017. And all of a sudden I walked out of a meeting that was 7 minutes long, and somehow I was no longer the two main archetypes in my own home, which is to say the provider and the protector. And it started to make me wonder, because when I walked back into my house, I was like, well, wait a minute. My daughters are still my daughters. My now ex-wife was still my wife. You know, And so it's like, who has actually taken these things away from me? And in fact, were they actually ever mine to start with? And so through my own moments of reflection, and I mean, I was hit with shame and guilt such that I didn't tell anybody what had happened for 3 weeks. So I'm without a job, but I'm not telling anybody because I'm trying to figure shit out. I'm being a guy. I got to fix it. Right. And during that time, I was literally Googling, what does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be a father? And eventually landed on, what does it mean to be a man? And it was through my own journey with these questions, through my own studies of some of the people who are out there, Robert Masters and Robert Johnson and King Warrior Magician Lover, getting involved with men's communities, that I started to realize that, in fact, I was under the spell. I was under society's toxic spells. And it was up to me as a fellow magician to write new spells, and that I could actually define, what does it mean to be a good father? What does it mean to be a good husband? What does it mean to be a good partner in a relationship? So it really came through my own experience. And then through that, I've literally been on I've done a lot of online work with men. It's where most of my work today is done. And I've been on the phone and on group calls with hundreds of men from all over the world. And time and again, it comes down to the same thing. They haven't been hearing their own voice. They haven't been meeting other people's standards. They haven't been actually living their own lives. They're living somebody else's life. And it's okay. There's no judgment there. The system is so well put together. We don't know it exists. That's what makes it so powerful. But when you start to sit with so many men and it's the same thing over and over and over again, it actually brings you strength. It actually brings you power. It actually helps you to gain clarity on what might be possible for yourself. Because if it was for them, it is for you. And while not everybody will have necessarily gone through an experience of losing their job and something like that, sort of turning their life upside down, I'm also very confident that we have all had experiences that we didn't want other people to know about, that we hid, that we kept inside out of shame and guilt and fear of what the repercussions might be. And I believe that if we can start to identify the reasons why we're feeling those ways around those particular experiences, then we're able to actually reclaim our own life. We're actually able to push through. And I've sat with hundreds of men individually and in group calls. And I've seen the same thing play out time and time again. Whatever their experience is that they've been sheltering, holding inside, at the end of the day, it's not their voice.
Paul, I agree with you 100%. I experienced that, where this voice comes in and tells me I'm not good enough. I don't have enough education. I haven't had enough experience. I am not validated enough to be on the stage and speaking and teaching, because I still struggle at times with my own mental health. And so I know exactly what you're talking about, Paul. And that internal dialogue, that internal conversation is so important to take control of. Man, I'm excited where this conversation is going, because it's right up my alley. I know exactly what you're talking about. I use a lot of neuro-linguistic programming to be able to help myself overcome those things. So I'm excited, Paul. What are you going to share with us today?
The biggest thing that I'm going to want us to focus on today is really, really simple. Is when we find those moments coming up and we start to come across a moment that's a really big challenge in our life and the story starts taking over, I want us to really sit with that story. But then it's so simple. I want you to also consider this, and I want you to do it time and time and again, because you're going to be able to open yourself up to all of the other things that are available to you. And that primary question, it's all based on one question: what else might be possible? And it's a version of some of the work that Byron Katie does, right? And so you come up with this one situation and you write the story out, you speak the story into a voice recorder, and you put it on pause and you sit with it. And then you think to yourself, well, what else might be possible? What else might be possible? This doesn't start to get us to the root of whose voice it actually was, but it begins to soften our shoulders. It begins to open ourselves up to being more accessible and being more available to moving forward from a place of strength and power. What else might be possible is one of the most powerful questions any of my clients work with, And it's one of my favorite tools out there.
Paul, I love it. And so what happens in the brain, you guys, is this is where neuroplasticity begins, because your brain gets stuck in these ruts, these patterns that you just repeat over and over and over and over and over again. And you can't figure out why. Why am I stuck in this rut? And I tell people that you're never going to be able to get out of the rut. You have to build a new pathway. And that's exactly what Paul is talking about, building a new neural pathway. And this recognition piece is the beginning of that. What else is possible? Paul, I do this exercise with my staff where I'll ask them, they'll give me a solution and I'll ask, is that the best solution that you have?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is. And other times they're like, well, no, I have this other idea. Well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Because I want to bring the best ideas out. That's why I asked, not what other ideas, but is this the best idea? Now their brain has to register. Is this the best idea? Yes, it is. Then we're going to go with it. Or they say, you know what? I do have this other idea I think is better, but it's going to cost more money. Great. Let's investigate that. What does that look like? That's my second question, Paul, is what does that look like? If they can imagine it, if they can see it, then their brain can start to create it in reality. It's fascinating. What you're doing, Paul, is in my wheelhouse. I'm excited about it because I understand the neuroscience behind it. And scripture tells us that we have to take every thought captive, especially those negative ones. And we have to make it subject to Christ. We have to take control of that and point it in the direction we want it to go. So tell us, Paul, how do we do that? How do we take these very simple ideas and start to build it out into the life that we really want?
Well, this is where my favorite tool comes into play, which is to say your imagination. So knowing what all of these other things are possible, then you can start to imagine for yourself a different outcome. You can start to imagine for yourself a whole different way of being with the current experience, but also what's on the other side of it, right? Because here's what happens quite often is that first story is actually meant to keep us in place. It's actually meant to keep us stuck, because part of the spells that they want us to follow is to keep us stuck. Part of it is to keep us in place, to hold you down to a certain degree. And when you start to go into the what else is possible, and that then you let your imagination run free, whether it's about work or relationships or like it doesn't really matter, but you start to be able to imagine something for yourself that in the old story or in the story that you were living, doesn't have to be old, wasn't even possible. It wasn't even accessible. And sometimes what I actually have them do in terms of using their imagination, if I can just share this little bit, don't go to the future if that's too hard. Go to the past, because there was also a moment in your past where things were not as they are now, right? So you're not good enough? Really? Okay. Let's find another situation where things went wrong, but you came out the other side. Can you remember that? Because that's your imagination too.
Yeah.
Going backwards isn't just about remembering. You need your imagination to remember. We forget that part. You need your imagination to remember. So we can go both ways.
So Paul, with this, so you've educated us on this, and I know everybody who comes on, you bring a free tool for the audience to be able to use. And so what is that free tool that you can give to people where they can start putting it into place right now?
Yeah. So I have a 7-day journal or a 7-day protocol, if you will. Protocol sometimes feels a little bit heavy and laborious. So I try to keep it light, right? And basically what we're doing is every single day, we're touching into that actual experience in our lives. And we're making sure we're building up on those what else might be possibles, right? And we choose one every single day. Now, you might end up with 40 of these things. And if you try to do all of them, it's too much. You choose one every single day and you imagine an outcome on the other side of it for yourself, right? It's so simple and it's so fun. It actually brings play back into your life as well, right? Which is really, really critical for these kinds of moments. So you got 7 days, you're taking a look at these things, you're imagining all the what else are possibles, then you're starting to imagine what is the other side. And then it ends with something that might look like a goal or a dream, if you will. You start to take a look and you take a look at everything you've done over the last week and you're like, okay, well, what would I choose for myself? What would I choose for my family? What would I choose for my community? And you then have something that you can build off of, right? Most of the time, having something we can build off of is what we've been lacking. So if we can create that for ourselves, let's do it.
I love this. Small daily disciplines. And so I teach a very similar thing about a different subject, but a daily routine, something you do every morning, the first 20 minutes of your day. Say the first 20 minutes because it's the most important part of the day, because that's when your brain is still in alpha wave state and it's the most programmable. So you can learn faster in the first 20 minutes. So I have people go in the first 20 minutes, and the goal really, if you don't do it in the first 20 minutes, it's fine. You can do it anytime during the day. I just like that first 20 minutes of the day. But I love what you gave here, Paul, because this is very actionable, very easy for people. It doesn't take a whole lot of time or cognitive load to accomplish. And this is what building mental resilience is all about. It's about small daily tasks that you complete.
That's right.
I absolutely love this, Paul. So if you guys want to get this, you guys know how to do it. Go to thefirstonesfree.com. Click the link, look up Paul's podcast. Right there, you're going to get this free tool directly to your inbox. Instantaneously, we're going to send this to you, and you can start using this tool on exactly what Paul just taught us about. Now, Paul, I know there's going to be people in our audience who want to know more. We always do three things. We educate, we empower, and then we encourage people. And we encourage them to take the next step. So what would be the next step if people want to come and work with you, Paul? What does that next step look like?
I don't do clarity calls. So the next step for these people is for them to reach out to me. And the first call is let's do some work. That's what we do. We get down to it. There's no reason for us to do a clarity call, right? So the next step for them, go to my website, book a call, and let's get to work. We're going to figure out by doing the work whether or not we should be working together. And if we shouldn't, no problem. Maybe we'll see who we can get you in touch with. Let's get you going.
Perfect. All right. Okay, Paul. So what does it look like if people want to take the next step and want to start working with you? What does that look like?
I'm actually really excited because I've got this new program that's going to be launching in June of this year. So it's like tomorrow, and people can start. They can go to the link that we're going to be sharing with them. They can sign up for that now, and they can get their spot. There are small group sessions, and what we're going to be doing is taking 2 hours together, and we're going to start taking a look at what are the spells that are casting their influence on our lives and unpacking some of them to help people take their lives back.
I love that, Paul. Doing it right now. I love that. I don't like these courses where people come and they just give you all this information. I want to take action right now. And I love that's what your course is, hey, we're going to get in and we're going to start doing the work. That's the only way to get results, Paul, is to do the work. I know that, you know that, and our viewers, you know it now, but you don't really know it until you start doing the work.
Amen.
Okay, Paul, I know you've helped a lot of people over the years. What's one story that you could kind of share with us of somebody who did really well in your program?
I got to tell you, my favorite story is somebody who remains, actually, they become a good friend of mine. And I came into contact with him actually just in the middle of the pandemic. And we were in a men's community together. He was really struggling with his relationship. And for the most part, it was because of some of exactly what we've been talking about, the stories that he had about how he was supposed to show up, what his partner was supposed to look like, what his partner was supposed to act like, what the dynamic should be like. And, you know, he came from a different background, a different culture than she did. And it was through those the exact things that we've been talking about today that we were able to unpack some of those things. We actually did some work with his partner as well. And I'm really happy to say that 18 months ago, they got married and they are living their best life. It is a beautiful relationship. And I got invited to the wedding. So, you know, as somebody who's supporting people, when you get invited to the wedding, it probably means you've done something all right.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thanks for spending some time with us, Paul. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. We want to do three things here on the Mental Health Janitors. We want to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. Go check out thefirstonesfree.com. I'm your host, Sgt Q, and I'm out.